Welcome to another brief episode of Resurrected by Faith. I'm your host, and today we are going to do something that might actually change the way you visualize your entire spiritual life.
We're tackling a big one.
We are. We're opening up a stack of texts that really challenge one of the most common assumptions people make about faith itself.
It's a foundational assumption, really, the idea that faith is just a label you wear.
Right. We usually talk about faith, and it feels so binary, like a light switch. You walk into a dark room, you flip the switch, you either have faith or you don't. You're a believer or you're not.
You're in the club or you're out.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's treated as a static status, a box you check on a form.
But the sources we're digging into today, texts on the ascension of the Spirit, the Book of Jubilees.
And even some of the Enochian literature, they paint a completely different picture. They don't describe a switch. They describe a geography.
A geography.
A mountain, to be precise. Faith isn't a status you hold. It's a climb you endure. It's dynamic. It moves.
And the air gets thinner the higher you go.
Significantly thin.
I love that visual, and I want to stick with it because it's going to anchor everything we discuss. We are talking about the 5 levels of faith.
From admission to endurance.
So for everyone listening, I want you to picture this, unless you're driving, of course. Picture a mountain path ascending through a wilderness. We are not on flat ground today.
Not at all.
At the very bottom, the base is broad. It's earthy. Think clay colors, dust, the ground right under your feet.
That's the flesh. That's the starting point for all of us.
But as you look up, the path, it gets narrower, it gets steeper, and the colors shift, right? We move from that earthy brown into gold, and then at the very summit,
a brilliant, blinding white light, which symbolizes the spirit. The whole journey is that movement from flesh to spirit.
And we are going to try to summit this thing today. When you look at the 5 specific levels identified in these texts: the believer, the called, the chosen, the elect, and finally, the faithful.
And just a heads up, a lot of people stop at level 1 and think they finished the race.
Well, that's a perfect segue. Let's put our boots on. Let's start at the bottom. Level 1, the believer.
The believer.
Okay, so in our visual guide, the icon here is a heart or maybe a seed. This feels like the entry-level requirement, the price of admission.
It is, but we have to be really careful with our definitions here. This connects right back to that Psi We Yes framework we've talked about before.
Right.
Level 1, the believer, is strictly about the yes.
Okay, let's unpack that for anyone who might be new. When you say Psi We Yes, give us the quick breakdown.
Sure. The Psi is the cultural label. I am a Methodist, I am a Catholic, whatever. It's the external tag.
Got it.
The we is the community you belong to, but the yes, that's internal. The Ascension of the Spirit text calls this the internal yes.
So it's a private thing.
It's a moment of internal submission to the reality of God. It has almost nothing to do with what building you walk into on the weekend.
So you can have a label.
You can have the Psi plastered all over your social media, but if that internal yes hasn't happened, you're not a believer in this sense.
That's a huge distinction. The label doesn't make the believer.
Not according to these sources. One text says, true belief is the engine that drives a person to do good works. Think about that. An engine.
If the engine isn't on, the car's not moving.
Doesn't matter how shiny the paint job is, the internal yes is the ignition.
And a key characteristic that kept popping up for level 1 is this idea of trusting the unseen.
That's the defining trait. The believer accepts the truth of God before seeing the evidence. It's trusting the mountain is there even when it's covered in fog.
And we have a prototype for this, right? A character who just embodies this stage.
We do. Abraham.
Yeah.
But, and this is so critical, we have to strip away thousands of years of tradition to see him clearly here.
What do you mean?
When Abraham starts his journey, he isn't a Jew, he's not a Christian, he's not a Muslim.
He didn't have a Bible, didn't have a temple.
He had none of it. He was simply a man who looked up, heard a promise, and gave that internal yes. He believed the Lord.
And that belief, that was credited to him as righteousness.
Exactly. He had the seed of faith before he had any rituals or laws. That's why level 1 is the base. It's the universal entry point. Anyone can get there.
Okay, so we've said yes. We're standing at the base of the mountain. We're believers. But the path goes up from here. What's level 2?
Level 2 is the called.
The called. Okay, so on our map, the icon changes. It's not a seed anymore. Now it's a trumpet or an open door.
A trumpet is a great metaphor because it implies noise. It implies an interruption.
So level 1 was internal, a feeling. Level 2 sounds external.
Precisely. The sources call this the divine initiative. This is where God interrupts your life. He calls you before you've done anything to earn it. It's a summons.
A summons to what?
A summons to separate. The sources are pretty heavy on this. The call is always a movement away from the corruption of the world and into a community. You're moving from being a solitary individual with a yes to being part of a we.
There's the we from our framework. You can't be called into a vacuum.
No, you're called out of something and into a people. But here's the friction point. The call requires a response.
You have to move your feet.
You have to. And the text has this vivid, almost painful image of people who refuse. It warns against pulling away the shoulder.
Pulling away the shoulder. I love that imagery. It's like when you try to guide a toddler somewhere, they don't want to go, and they stiffen up and yank their arm away.
Exactly. It's that stubborn refusal to be led, refusing to bear the weight of the call. Because, let's be honest, being called isn't just a VIP invite. It's a summons to work.
Which brings us to our prototype for this level. The notes mention Bezalel. Now, for people who might have skipped the back half of Exodus, who's Bezalel?
Bezalel is the ultimate craftsman, the architect of the tabernacle. But the text emphasizes something very specific. He was called by name.
It wasn't a general volunteer sign-up sheet.
No. God didn't say, hey, anyone who's handy with gold and wood, please show up. Bezalel was specifically summoned and filled with the Spirit for a specific vocation.
So being called means having an assignment. Come out of that and come build this.
That's the shift. You've moved from the internal feeling of level 1 to the active obedience of level 2. You haven't pulled away the shoulder. You've put it to the wheel.
All right, we're climbing. But looking at the path for level 3, it seems to get a lot steeper.
It does. Level 3 is the chosen.
The chosen. Now, I have to stop us because that word, it carries a lot of baggage. When we hear chosen, we think elite. We think special privileges.
Teacher's pet. Skipping the line.
No.
That's the most common misconception in theology, honestly. We project our human hierarchies onto God. We think chosen means better.
So does it.
Not at all. The sources, especially Ascension of the Spirit, correct this aggressively. The icon for this level is a crown, yes, but it's also a yoke.
A yoke? Like for an ox.
Exactly. Being chosen is not about status, it's about service.
Yeah.
You are selected for a mission, for the sake of others.
So you aren't chosen to sit on a throne and eat grapes.
You're chosen to bring justice to the world. If you think being chosen makes you special, you've missed the point entirely. You're not even on the mountain.
And look at who gets chosen. The texts love to highlight this irony, don't they?
Oh, constantly. God has a habit of choosing the weak to shame the strong. There's that great passage in Deuteronomy.
Right.
God tells the people, I didn't choose you because you were the most numerous. In fact, you were the fewest of all people. It wasn't about their merit. It was about the chooser's oath.
It takes the ego right out of it.
It demands humility.
Yeah.
And our prototype here is David, which is perfect.
David, before he was King David.
Right. Think about the selection process. The prophet comes to his father's house. Jesse lines up all the big, strong, impressive sons.
And leaves David out in the field with the sheep.
He didn't even make the shortlist. The runt. But he was chosen. And what was he chosen for? Not to be served, but to shepherd God's people.
The job description stayed the same.
He traded a literal shepherd's crook for a royal scepter. But the job was the same. Protect the flock, execute justice, bear the burden.
So level 3 is accepting the yoke.
Exactly. If level 2 is showing up for work, level 3 is accepting management responsibility. And it's heavy.
Okay, we are getting really high up now. Level 4. The elect.
The elect.
The notes describe the atmosphere here as different. The air is thinner, the light is sharper, and there's a concept here that I really want you to dig into. The Babel effect.
Yeah, this is where we get into the supernatural protection aspect of faith.
So what is the Babel effect?
Imagine the world in a state of absolute chaos. Noise, confusion, everyone shouting, conflicting labels. That's Babel. It represents the confusion of the sea. The labels are at war.
Sounds like scrolling through a social media feed, honestly.
It sounds like the modern world. It is the chaos of information and division. The elect are the people who are preserved by God right in the middle of that storm.
So they aren't taken out of the world.
No, they're in it, but protected from the confusion. The Book of Enoch describes the elect as dwelling under the wings of the Lord of Spirits.
Under the wings. That's a very protective, intimate image.
It implies supernatural preservation. While the world is stumbling around in the dark of Babel, the elect walk in eternal light.
But why them? What's the condition for this level?
The source says they're protected specifically because they rejected the paths of violence and held to wisdom. They refused to play the game.
And our prototype here is Enoch.
Enoch. a mysterious figure. Genesis just says he walked with God, and then he was not, for God took him.
He took the high pass.
He lived in a time of pre-flood corruption. I mean, total moral collapse. But Enoch walked so closely with God that the corruption couldn't touch him.
He stayed untouched by the madness.
He represents that possibility, that you can live in a broken world and remain at peace.
That feels like a level of peace that is almost unattainable. But we aren't at the top yet. There's one more. The summit.
Level 5, the faithful.
The faithful. We've reached the peak. The colors shift to brilliant white and gold. The icon is an anchor or a diamond. Unbreakable.
This is the destination.
But I have to ask the obvious question. We started at level 1 with the believer. Now we're at the faithful. In English, we use those words interchangeably. What's the difference?
On this mountain, they are worlds apart. And here's the so what of the entire journey. The believer says yes one time.
And the faithful.
The faithful maintains that yes over a lifetime.
It's the duration.
It's the endurance. It's the difference between your wedding day and your 50th anniversary.
That's a great analogy. Anyone can say I do when there's cake and flowers.
Exactly. But the faithful is the one still saying I do after the sickness, the poverty, the arguments, the tragedy. Level 5 is enduring loyalty. Reliability that mirrors God's own faithfulness.
And to understand this, we have to go back to Abraham. But this isn't the Abraham from level 1.
No, that was Abram. This is Abraham on Mount Moriah. This is the Abraham of the test.
The sacrifice of Isaac.
The Book of Jubilees gives us this incredible detail here. It frames the moment almost like a courtroom wager.
With that figure, Prince Mastema.
Prince Mastema, yes. The adversary, the accuser. He challenges God. He looks at Abraham, who has everything he ever wanted, and says, he only loves the blessing, not you. If you ask him to give up the boy, he'll fold.
He's calling his bluff.
He is testing the integrity of the yes. And so the command comes, sacrifice Isaac. And when Abraham walks up that mountain and raises the knife, he is proving something.
The text says Prince Mastema was put to shame.
Put to shame. Abraham stood on the summit. He proved his love for God was stronger than his love for the promise. He didn't waver.
That is proven by trial.
Faith that has survived the furnace is not just starting the race, it's finishing it. And the reward, the text says, is the habitation of upright paths. You don't just visit the mountain anymore, you live there.
Wow. Okay, so let's look back down the path. Believer, called, chosen, elect, faithful. How do we tie this all together for someone listening right now?
It all circles back to that framework we started with. The see, we, yes.
Walk us through it one last time.
First, the see. That's the lens. We might call these levels different names in different cultures. That's the Babel effect. Don't get hung up on the labels.
Right. The reality of the ascent is universal.
Then, the we. That's the community. You don't climb alone. You're called into a people. You're chosen to serve that people. It's a collective ascent.
We go up together. And the yes.
The yes is the core. The journey begins at the base with the believer saying yes. And it ends at the summit with the faithful still saying yes in the face of the ultimate trial.
It's the exact same yes.
It's the same submission. It just gets deeper, stronger, and more unbreakable the higher you climb.
That's powerful. We're all invited to be believers. That's the open door at the bottom. But the real mission is to ascend to the faithful.
That's the challenge. And that's the question we have to leave everyone with, I think. If faith is an ascent, where are you on the mountain?
Are you sitting at the base with the seed? Have you picked up the trumpet? Are you bearing the yoke?
Or are you in the furnace right now, being forged into something faithful? It's not about how fast you climb. It's about not stopping.
Something to think about this week. Thank you for joining us on this climb. We'll see you next time.
Keep climbing.